Testing, testing, testing. One, two, three. Testing, testing, testing. All right, my microphone is good. All right, hello all. Welcome to As the World Turns. Today we're uh today we're talking about geopolitics. Today is June 13th, 2018. We have a good show for you today. Our topics will range from the G6 to the SEO summit to Turkey purchasing S-400s, Yemen, Trump meeting Kim Jong-un, and possible sanction removals. I hope you all had a good day today. And, excuse me. Yes, I hope you all had a good day today. So, that said, we can get into the show.
Yo,
All right. How you doing, Mighty Ghost? How you doing today?
oh, chilling, man, chilling.
All right. How was your day?
Straight. I was off today.
Oh, that's good, man. Get some sun.
Yeah, hell no,
Yeah.
I ain't trying no sun now.
Oh, dang, it's good for you. It's good for you.
Yeah, uh, I just did a little trading. I was about watching a couple of my stocks.
Okay,
Ooh,
that's good. That's good. Well, that's coming up Friday, so we can. I
yeah.
man, I've been jumping into it myself. After a while, it gets addicting. So, yeah, I know. So with that said, we're going to get into the show first. I think okay. Trying to find this article on the G7 summit. That was a YouTube video, but of course, do not want to play the YouTube video. Don't want to get don't want this to get copyright on. All right.
Yeah.
Now there were some good things that happened with the G7. Of course, Trump left early to meet with Kim Jong Un. Um, some people have their own interpretation about that. There, let me do this real quick. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right. This article is from CNN.com by Chris Saliza. This is on Monday, June 11th. The absolute chaos of Donald Trump's G7 meeting and what it means moving forward. With only hours remaining before a historic summit between the leaders of the United States and North Korea, it's easy to lose sight of what President Donald Trump and some of his top staffers said and did just before arriving in Singapore. Blow up an international gathering with some of America's closest allies with a combination of erratic behavior and hugely impolite, impolitic, in, I'm butchering that word, statements. Whatever happens in Singapore over the next day or two, it's uniquely possible and maybe even likely that what Trump did in Quebec on Friday and Saturday will matter more in the country's long-term geopolitical future, and not in a good way. Let's detail what happened in the 36-ish hours Trump spent in Quebec and what he and his allies said once he left. Before Trump even jetted to the conference on Friday morning, he floated the possibility of Russia rejoining the G7. Russia was kicked out of the group after invading Ukraine and annexing Crimea in 2014. Trump arrived late for a gathering of G7 leaders focused on gender diversity on Saturday morning. They started the meeting without him. Ooh. Trump held a wide-ranging news conference before he left Quebec to jet to Singapore. In that presser, he described the meeting as a 10 out of 10 and insisted he had very close personal relationships with others: Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. After apparently watching a Trudeau press conference on Air Force One, Trump took to Twitter to attack the Canadian Prime Minister. PM Justin Trudeau of Canada acted so meek and mild during, excuse me, during our G7 meeting, only to give a news conference after I left saying that U.S. tariffs were kind of insulting and he will not be pushed around, tweeted Trump. Very dishonest and weak. Our tariffs are in response to his 230% on dairy. Trump, Chef Trump, economic advisor, Chief Trump economic advisor Larry Kudlow went on CNN State of the Union and called Trudeau's news conference a trail, adding he stabbed us in the back. Peter Navarro, a trade advisor for Trump, was even more damning in his comments about Trudeau. There's a special place in hell for any foreign leader that engages in bad faith diplomacy with President Donald J. Trump, then tries to stab him in the back on the way out of the door, Navarro said on Fox News Sunday. And what's that's what's bad faith Justin Trudeau did with that stunt press conference. That's what's that's what weak, dishonest Justin Trudeau did, and that comes right from Air Force One. I don't want to bore you all out reading all this, but it was some sure there was some things that went on at this G7 conference. I know I heard in passing some things on the news. They were talking about it. How Trump.
Yeah, Kudlow had a heart attack, saying all that junk stressed itself out.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't. Maybe I wasn't listening. Maybe I heard it, but I didn't know he arrived late. You know, I thought I heard someone saying that he wasn't even prepared for either the G7 or his meeting with Kim Jong Un. He just did it by the seat of his pants. He was just going ill prepared.
Yeah, pretty much. He thinks because he's white that it goes.
And for him to come late, then the other other 6 members of the G7, hit start the meeting without him. And after, I think, where's this is, then he said in a news conference, he described the meeting as a 10 out of 10. And I know he say this quite often. He'll say, "Oh, me and so has a great relation. He's my friend, such and such." But then, seemingly in the same breath, he would say, "Oh, this person has done this in the past. You can't trust this person. Oh, this person is this person that." So he's not even playing the political game how it's supposed to be played. In politics, Mike, I don't know what Mike said. You have permanent interest, but uh, short-lived friends. But still, you still need to play that role of being playing a political role of partnering with people for short time. He's just letting it all fly.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And I yesterday I saw a documentary on tariffs, and the I forgot why I saw a documentary at. They did a good job describing the tariffs. And they were just saying that tariffs are not necessarily bad. Um, some countries are putting tariffs to protect their own domestic economy, and I don't know specifically why there's a 270% interest on dairy for. You know what? We have another host. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, what's going on, brothers?
All right, yourself.
All right.
Yeah, I was saying I didn't know Trump came late. I know his antics during the G7 conference. I heard all about them throughout the news, but I didn't know he arrived late. And to me, that's unprofessional.
It's actually a strategy.
Really?
Yeah, it's a strategy.
Okay. Now, what's the strategy behind that? What's the purpose of that strategy?
That you're at the mercy of the United States.
Okay.
You wait on me.
I can see that. I can see that.
Because if he showed up early, or if he showed up early, then what happens is
Go ahead, Mike.
Does Maddie want to jump in? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay.
You want to say something?
Okay.
Michaels? Go ahead, Mike.
So basically, the strategy is if he shows up early, then it makes him look like he's desperate and he's weak and he's not really fully in control. Whereas if he shows up late, then it presents this bravado, like, oh well, Kim had to wait on me, and I'm the one that's running the show, and I'm the one that's really that's brokering the deal. When the reality is, it's really the Chinese and the Russians who and the South Koreans who actually are driving this whole entire process.
Okay. Now, from my standpoint, I say it's unprofessional because of what he's been doing. Now, I agree with you that is a strategy, but in the context of his character, in terms of what he's been doing in the office, then a lot of people wouldn't see that as okay. I see what he's doing, but because he's been doing all this, and I know people have been saying, I've heard, well, I'm trying to phrase this. I know the strategy, I understand it, and I do agree with it. But in terms of him being who he is and what he's been doing, that's a hard one to swallow.
Well, you have to take into consideration who he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trump is a former reality show real estate mogul who really doesn't have any political experience at all, and it's showing every time he opens his mouth and every time he shows up at each event.
Yeah.
Right. The tweets are actually a new thing for a president, anyways. Not really something that most presidents previous to him actually had access to. But in terms of his diplomacy is lacking because he's not a politician. So he can't be politically correct or held to a politically correct standard.
Because he's the first president in office that had neither a political background or military background in terms of serving in the military.
He also doesn't have a degree. Every other president had some form of post-secondary education. Trump dropped out in 8th grade.
Really? I don't know he dropped out in 8th grade. Oh. So in essence, he just walked into the White House and got elected. In essence, that's one way of looking at it. But yeah, he do have a lot of backing. But yeah, his diplomacy is lacking. His tactfulness is lacking, and you, like I said, you can see it every time. And what about this Russia? Him saying Russia should join the G7 again. what's going on with that move? With that?
Well, he's just thinking out loud, right? Like most undereducated political professionals, is that what he's saying is that the balance of power in society should include the Americans and should include the Russians. He's sympathetic to the Russians because he doesn't understand how a nation that's supposed to be so strong is being marginalized. He think that's not fair to the Russians. But he doesn't like the Chinese because that's the racist in him, right? That these people who don't look like me are ripping us off, and we need to get back at them and this and that.
Okay. Now, where's it go? That's not it. All right. The SCO summit, the Shanghai cooperation. I saw the entire 2-hour meeting. It was a bit dry, but at the same time, it was, dare I say, a little exciting for me to listen to, because I felt like I'm listening to them say what they're gonna do. But nothing stuck to me. Nothing stuck with what they said. And I heard I forgot. I can't pronounce his name. China's president say there's going to be a 30 billion yen. They're going to have for. I can't remember. I'm just going to read this article. This is from First Post. SCO Summit 2018. Xi Jinping says China rejects selfish trade policies, calls for building an open global economy. Qingdao, Chinese President Xi Jinping, whose country is locked in a high-stakes trade dispute with the United States on Sunday, said China rejects selfish, short-sighted trade policies and called for building an open global economy. Xi did not mention the United States during a speech at a summit meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a regional security bloc led by China and Russia. We reject selfish, short-sighted, closed, narrow policies. We uphold World Trade Organization rules, support a multilateral trade system, and building an open world economy, Xi said in a speech in the port city of Qingdao. The United States and China have threatened tit-for-tat tariffs on goods worth up to $150 billion each, as President Donald Trump has pushed Beijing to open its economy further and address the United States' large trade deficit with China. Xi spoke hours after Trump said he was backing out of the Group of Seven communique, thwarting what appeared to be a fragile consensus on a trade dispute between Washington and its top allies. We must discard Cold War thinking, group confrontation. We object to acts of getting one's own absolute security at the cost of other countries' security, Xi said. The SCO was launched in 2001 to combat radical Islam and other security concerns in China, Russia, and across Central Asia. It added 2 new members, India, Pakistan, which that was pretty good, last year, and Iran has been knocking at the door. Tehran is currently an observer rather than a full member of a bloc that also includes 4 ex-Soviet Central Asian republics. Xi also said China would offer the equivalent of 30 billion yuan, or 4.7 billion US dollars, in loans under a framework formed by SCO countries. Okay, now, what did you get out of this summit, Mike?
So there's actually a lot of agreements that they've made. I think there's about a dozen, if not more, on all types of geopolitical security. So water, energy, transportation, logistics, currency, or I should say economics, as well as civil security. So they're combining all of these securities into a framework that is allowing all of these nation states, which represent 60% of the world population, to have a collective, cohesive system. Something that the United States actually did not want to join, even though they weren't invited in the early stages of it.
Okay, we have a few more guests. How you doing, BGS, and how you doing, Lowell Cast?
Hey, what's going on?
All right. We on the SCO summit. I think I'm trying to link the video in the description, but the large scale summit talks was the other day, and they talked about a few things. Not just read an article where they were talking about a few things. I don't know if you saw it or heard about it, but what do you think about it?
I say the biggest thing is the inclusion of India and Pakistan, and gathering more members, because at the core, that's the SEO is basically at the heart of it is Russia and China. It's at the heart of it, and everything else kind of forms out from there. So everybody's lining up behind the SEO, which is the main, which is actually bigger than the BRICS.
Okay.
So the fact that Pakistan and India are both contributing members, are now formal members, that means a couple things. One, that there's two more basically pieces that got flipped over, because India was kind of on the fence. They're part of the BRICS, but they were always waffling between the West and the East. But by joining the SEO, they're solidly on behind the Russia-China camp. And by Pakistan being in that also, that means there's less conflict, because how long have Pakistan and India been fighting?
Wow.
So now they're in the same not only super trade pact, but also the same defense pact. So what that means, there's no more fighting between Pakistan and India. So there's a lot of things that will to unpack that's historical. So
You
it's
have
not
any-
back. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
I was going to say, you have any comments on this Lowcast?
No, not at the moment.
All right. What about you, Matty Ghost?
No, I guess it would be more continuity. That's all I can say.
Now, in the I saw, like I said, I saw the video, and the Pakistani representative, I think it was the president. He was saying one of the flagship routes for the China Belt and Road system goes to Pakistan. I forgot what was the name of it. He said
It's called the Kashmir region. The Kashmir region is shared,
which is what something
shared between
India and Pakistan, which they've been fighting over for 40 years, 50 years.
Oh yeah. And Mike, I do remember we did talk about that. And I remember I heard him say it, and me and Michael talked about that. Like you said, Pakistan and India has been going at it for a while, but since China brings them into the mix, there nothing's going to jump off, because there's money to be made.
Well, the BRI goes through Kashmir, and those regions so have not been resolved in terms of these border disputes. So what China wants to do is play the median and actually bring them to the table and actually settle those disputes and allow the BRI to go right through. Now, BGS brought up the BRICS. Now, the BRICS will eventually go away and become will fold into the SCO, which is what they was talking about during the summit. So it'll probably eventually become the SCDO, which is the Shanghai Cooperation and Development Organization, rather than just have the BRICS itself.
Yeah, the BRICS was never their name anyway. It was actually coined by somebody else. I think it was somebody from Goldman Sachs, or it might be somebody else that actually coined the name. And so they just roll with it because that's what people knew them as far as a trade pact. But the SCO was formed by Russia and China. So basically, it's almost like the chessboard, or like the Go board, or a game of Risk, because now it's just about pieces and what pieces are they gaining. And as you can see, as right on schedule, you can see the G7 starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
Because
Now,
as the EU falls apart.
this also said that Iran is trying to get into the SCO.
They probably would have been in the SCO, except it's probably too politically charged to actually put them in there. Because they've been applying for membership for the SCO since 2005 or 6.
Well, they had sanctions on them, so they couldn't join.
Yeah.
Now, what would Iran have to do? What will have to change in Iran for the SCO to even consider them?
When the United States is not as one, their war making policies, the war making potential is not as great, and two, when their influence kind of ebbs. As their influence ebbs, then they'll be okay to put Iran. It's more about politics than it is about practicality. For all intents and purposes, Iran is probably part of the SCO, just not formally. They've been observer state for 10 years or something like that.
Right, they're an observer state because of the sanctions.
Yeah, which really don't mean much to the Chinese and Russians. It really doesn't mean much. It's just political.
Their money is actually tied up. So they want that $100 billion that's tied up in Wall Street in London. So the idea is to wait until the sanctions are lifted, so that you can get your money and then you can be a part of the entire framework. If you make them a part of the framework, then what happens is the money will never come back.
Well, it might not come back with 100. It might not come back. But the thing is, it's just more. If you make them part of the SCO, you make the SCO a target, because Iranians have been a target for so many years. Well, since the Shah, they've been a target, and you don't want them to be a political target. $100 billion for that is not. It's a lot of money, but it's not enough to actually prevent them from doing what they want to do.
Now, I'm looking at the map of the core members of the SCO, and the green, the green are the members, and the blue are observers. There's this part right here, which what's that? Turkmenistan. Why isn't Turkmenistan? It's right there. It's neighboring all the country. Why isn't Turkmenistan a part of the SCO in any capacity?
Well, that's a good question.
Are you sure that's a recent map?
Let's see. Let me see here. Let's go to.
Just type in Turkmenistan and SCO and see what comes up. And I'll give you a reason why they are or they aren't.
The problem with Wikipedia is that they refuse to update certain criteria because they have an agenda behind their whole entire strategy.
Okay, that article was from 2015. It's not too recent. Okay, this is 7 days ago. Why Turkmenistan is part?
It's not part of the SCO. Yeah. They'll give you a reason why.
This is from June 7th. Why Turkmenistan is not part of the Eurasian Security Bloc. The 18th summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, will take. This is okay. Okay, the SCO now has 8 members in all: Russia, China, India, Pakistan, and 4 Central Asian republics of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. Turkmenistan, which got independence after the fall of the former Soviet Union in 1991, just like the other 4 republics, has followed a policy of positive neutrality in its foreign affairs from the onset. In October 1995, Turkmenistan, the second largest of the CARs, after Kazakhstan, has told the United Nations about its foreign policy stance, and subsequently the UN unanimously adopted a special resolution of the General Assembly on the country's permanent neutrality. The neutrality in Turkmenistan's foreign policy also includes non-alignment with any military blocs and groupings, as its late president has underlined. It is because of this reason that Turkmenistan never joined the SCO, though it has sent high-level representative to as a special guest to SCO gatherings. It has neither been a part of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which comprises, besides Russia, the members of the Commonwealth of Independent States, though some of them withdrew from the bloc later. So the reason they're not in the SCO is because it's neutrality.
It could be a lot of things. It could be the makeup of their population. It could be the agreements they have with say the European states. Could be a lot of reasons. But
they are a part of the EEU, which is the Eurasian Economic Union. So they may not need to see the benefit in actually being part of multiple different frameworks, because there's also another framework where they are part of it in conjunction with Azerbaijan and Armenia. There's a collective security framework already in place.
Yeah, but anytime because you have two different poles, and the thing is that you make yourself a target for a whole bunch of things if you join one group or the other. So if you can stay neutral, you stay neutral. If you can still get benefit out of it.
Now let me put this question out there. Again, I'm looking at the visual map, and you have the two Koreas. If they were to join, what are the chances of them joining the SCO?
I don't think they have a need to join the SCO.
Really? Why not?
What are they going to gain from it?
I would say some type of economic growth.
Talking about Korea, why does South Korea need economic growth from China? They're doing fine by themselves.
What about North Korea?
No, what they want to happen is some sort of reunification. South Korea can actually help North Korea develop. They got enough money. They have enough money and enough technology to help North Korea develop without China, if that's what they really want. Thing is that it's far cheaper for them to do it, help them develop, than actually have a standing army and paying for United States military bases to be there in South Korea to protect them from their relatives, their cousins. So, South Korea has more than enough money to actually help them develop, even without China.
Now, what do you think about that, Mike? The South Korea, the two Koreas, that with the same question.
Well, North Korea will come on once the denuclearization takes place. They've already been considered as an observer member, but the problem is if the reunification process takes place, then the whole entire state will change. I don't particularly think that there's going to be a reunification per se, but I do see South Korea actually joining the SCO at some point, because in order for South Korea to get natural gas and the lithium that's inside North Korea, it has to come through North Korea, and the natural gas that deposits that's there is coming from Russia. So Russia has already agreed to give North Korea natural gas and fiber optic technology, as well as 5G technology, to actually develop itself internally, so that they can actually be a hub, a gas station to South Korea, because South Korea needs energy badly.
Yeah, but they don't need to join the SCO to get it.
Yeah, but it's coming at a cheaper cost for what they're paying from Qatar. It can come at a fraction of the cost from North Korea if Russia actually provides the pipeline to them.
Yes, I'm saying, but the South Korea does not have to join the pact to actually get it. They're just a regular customer. It's cheaper, and it helps North Korea and Russia, because Russia wants to sell gas and oil.
Right, but the framework that's going to be largely in place will eventually suck them right into the entire into the entire playbook. They don't like Japan per se, but it works out better if they actually join the framework for what it stands for. So the water security, the energy security, the technological advancements and human development is exactly what the SCO is talking about. If you actually watch the 2-hour video, so it makes sense if South Korea actually joins on with the SCO as opposed to avoiding it.
Yeah, but the thing is, they can get all that without joining.
Actually, they can. They're really starving right now for resources. So the resources that's largely in North Korea is what's driving this whole entire peace treaty agreement, because they need those resources.
And North Korea needs the technology, and the advanced technology is in South Korea. They're already. The thing is, it's a fair trade. South Korea is one of the most advanced countries on the planet. And they have tons of money, and they have tons of technology and tons of advancement. It's a fair trade. They don't need to join anybody to get it.
They actually would not get it if China decides that what North Korea's foreign policy would be.
Why? China is about making deals and not getting in the way of business. They don't really care. The SCO, an organization, is just more political than it is anything else. South Korea, China and South Korea have been working together for a very long time. In fact, China and South Korea, that's how China was the one that brokered the deal between North Korea and South Korea, where the Americans couldn't. They're already on the table. They don't have to join anything if they don't want to. There's really no reason for them to join it. They can get the same. They can get basically. They can actually cut that deal, the same deal, because North Korea actually probably needs South Korea more than the other way around, and they have plenty of stuff to trade for it. Technology, advancement, money, all that kind of stuff that's needed. So it's easier to work with them than cut them out, because you're gonna have to. If you're gonna sell, if you have gas and oil, you have to sell it to somebody. There's no sense in you can't have a pipeline without a customer.
Right. And the only way South Korea can get it is through North Korea.
In North Korea, they can still get it through North Korea with a trade pact. They don't need to join the SCO. It can be a separate trade pact. Just like Europe gets oil and gas and all that kind of stuff from Russia now. Are they part of the SCO? No.
No, the SCO doesn't actually attribute to the European framework, anyways.
That's what I'm saying. Is
they already have something called the EEU, so that would be different.
In other words, they don't necessarily need to join the SCO. There's really no reason for them to do it.
They're already a considered member. They're already a considered observing member.
They're an observer, but what I'm saying is they don't. That's what I'm saying is, do they need to? No. So do I see them doing it? Yeah, probably not. We'll see. It's the iffy thing.
I have another question for you all. How did South Korea become a leading nation technologically?
That's got a lot of American money.
No, I explained that because look at if you go back to the environmental lawsuits that have gone on between, I think it was between IBM and a few others that were actually up there in Northern California, where the chips and stuff like that were too toxic to make on American soil. They had to export all that stuff to the Far East, which is Taiwan and South Korea. So a lot of your chip making and chip developing and all that kind of stuff was actually exported to Asia to get around the environmental impacts, because they couldn't scale it. So Asia took the environmental hit, but they got the technology. So that's how they scaled up, because you couldn't make it here. And Quigley talks about this. There are a lot of technologies that have a roadblock in certain countries or exported someplace else, and they flourish. So that's basically what happened with Asia, because Asia is built around what? Electronic chips, the electronic microchip, TVs, radios, computers, memory, all that kind of stuff is produced in most of the bulk of that is produced in Asia.
Any comment, Mike?
Basically, a lot of American money was pumped into South Korea after 1953. And if you look at a lot of the industrialization from Hyundai and Kia from the the civil engineering standpoint, a lot of that drove, and Samsung too, a lot of that drove their growth. And that's when you started seeing more electronics from companies like Iowa and things of that nature that were challenging the Japanese at a far cheaper cost. And they were actually ripping off a lot of technology from Japan as well in order to.
In fact, Japan, you know, in fact, Japan exported a lot of their factories to Korea because it was actually cheaper than making it in Japan. In fact, in the 80s, like Hyundai benefited a lot from that because they were basically they were already making Japanese parts in South Korea anyway. So they took the Japanese technology and just basically turned it into their own thing. But that's right, because I was actually researching this a few years ago. I probably have to go back and look at my notes. Back in 1975, I do believe, is that when United States started exporting start developing the chip manufacturing plants in the Far East, in Taiwan first and Korea second. But the big explosion for Korean money is in chips, is in electronics.
Okay. Now, we all know Trump went to go see Kim Jong-un, quote unquote, his buddy, as he said. I'm going to read some of this article because it goes in pretty depth, but it's pretty long at the same time. President Trump returned to Washington on Wednesday to piece together a new world reality, one he hopes will result in a nuclear-free North Korea and maybe one day a Nobel Peace Prize. But as his estrangement from traditional U.S. allies deepens and the outcomes of his summit with Kim Jong-un are disputed, an uncertain and challenging road is coming into clearer view. After spurning close to U.S. partners at the G7 summit in Canada over his sense that the U.S. is being cheated on trade, Trump turned to touting his historic summit with Kim as an unmitigated success that will quickly lead to North Korea abandoning its nuclear weapons, even though the regime offered no new concessions or verifiable commitments on paper. Now Trump work begins to ensure that new American outlook he's projected onto the world endures. It's one where bipartisan membership of Congress are doubting the outcomes of his Singapore summit, while repudiating his approachment with Russia and his alienation of U.S. allies. Meanwhile, the world awaits the concrete outcomes of the detailed U.S.-North Korea negotiations that will decide whether Trump's optimism was simply born out of naivete. Now, okay, he just met with him. They didn't put pen to paper on anything solid. So why did he go there?
Save face. And plus, you know, plus the from what I read, I actually read a CNBC article, and basically they said pretty much they said what I thought. One, the Koreans are tired of living underneath that nuclear threat, and every time the United States and basically North Korea rattle sabers, guess who is in the middle?
South Korea.
Seoul's in the middle. They're tired of that, and the Chinese are tired of that, and they want the United States out of Asia. You know, as long as there's a base there, they want the United States out of Asia.
So anything to get them out, which includes uniting both Koreas,
which is something that eventually is going to benefit them both, even if it's not complete reunification. At least some sort of de-escalation of hostilities.
Okay.
And so China brokered it. You know, it's probably been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but China brokered that stuff in like a few months. Like, sit down, talk about it, and come together. What do you want? What do you want? Boom. 2 months later, they're basically signing the deal, and basically it's along the same pact that China already signed. What was there to negotiate? The only thing is that like I said, it was a freeze thing. In other words, we won't develop anymore if you don't have any war games, and that's just the start of it. But it's more than that. Basically, it's if China does if China does with North and South Korea that they did with Pakistan and India, okay, basically they're not fighting anymore, and basically they've been fighting for 50 years under the West. If you look at Eritrea and Ethiopia. Okay, they've been fighting for 30 years. China walks in, say we're going to develop and we're going to squash this shit. Guess what happened? It got squashed. So basically, what do you have if China comes and settles the beef, and you're not part of it? That means you're no longer the policeman of the world.
Right.
And China's starting to play the role of policeman or peacemaker, which it has been the United States role for 80 years.
I can imagine they don't like that either.
I mean, that's what I would do. If I was president. Wait a minute. It makes you look bad.
All right.
So he goes over. So what did he get? I mean, what did he get from over there for meeting with him?
What say? Save face.
Save face.
Any comments on it, Mike?
Yeah. So they've been working on this since the Obama administration. So North Korea has been watching what deal was with the JCPOA, and they wanted the same thing. And the Russians and the Chinese actually wrote the JCPOA for themselves, or for Iran, which is how the deal was actually brokered. Just like the Syrian chemical weapons removal was actually written by the Russians to actually have it removed. So the North Koreans want the same deal that the Iranians got, but they don't want the consequences of what Gaddafi got in Libya. So what they're looking at is 6 in one half and a half dozen in the other, and they're saying we'll destroy the nuclear test facilities if you actually start removing troops one by one. Now, the Americans have been wanting since Obama to actually get out of South Korea and stop pulling back troops, which is why they started. Trump started pulling out troops from Syria, as well as he wants to pull the troops out of South Korea as well. This is a way for them to say face and say, okay, well, we brokered a deal and we have 30,000 guys there, and by late 2020 we'll be down to maybe 18,000, 15,000, and then by 2025 they'll be all out.
You save face, but you also save what? Money. What are you running out of? Money. You're broke. You're broke. And if they de-dollarize and you can't, if they start de-dollarizing and they're de-dollarizing and you can't tax the rest of the world that you've been taxing them for the last, since 1971, almost damn near 50 years, you're gonna have to start thinking ahead. You're gonna have to start cutting. And where do you cut first? You cut the defense, the forward defense. For the rest of the world is very expensive. Even Eisenhower said that back in the 1950s. It's expensive, but they maintained it because they could tax the rest of the world. When you can't tax the rest of the world, in fact, Trump said it's going to save us a lot of money just by not doing the exercises in South Korea. There's a lot of moving parts, but it's going to save money. And Trump has been running a isolationist stance since he got in office. Pulling back the Eagles clause, which Obama wanted to do it, but they didn't allow him to do it. But under Trump, they probably are going to do it, which is why you see this big rift in the G7, because Trump's retracting the clause,
or the six versus one. But yeah, North Korea wants the same deal that the Iranians got, and if the Iranians got billions of dollars in restitution, then North Korea wants same thing, at least a fraction of it. What they're surviving on right now is pennies compared to what the Iranians have got. But if you look at the position that the Iranians have been placed in for the last 40 years, and you look at the position that North Korea has been placed in, they seem to be able to be self-sufficient with the little human resources that they have and the little economic resources that they have. So North Korea could use all that money coming in. They have all the minerals on the ground that many of the other countries around them want. So, but from what I just read early this morning, North Korea has at least $1 trillion in untapped natural resources underground, including lithium.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's never been tapped. They've been isolated since the 50s. So,
well, some of it has been tapped, but the problem is they don't have the modern mining equipment to actually get it out. So South Korea does have the modern mining equipment, and so does China. But the problem is, how would you get them? The problem is they don't know how to get the the money into North Korea without actually being violation of these sanctions.
Yeah, you basically build another financial framework, right?
Right, and the rumors in North Korea has been that they've been looking at cryptocurrencies for the last maybe 2 or 3 years now. So
what is China, Russia, and God knows probably half the world doing right as we speak? What are they doing now?
They collect a lot of cryptocurrency.
They're building another financial framework.
Okay, now this is my question. North Korea has, like you say, $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. $1 trillion in untapped resources, and now the two Koreas, they unite. Which South Korea has the know-how, to the intellectual know-how to get to tap those resources from the ground. Now what ends up? Now you have a united Korea that's both high-powered in terms of technology and resources.
Well, and they also have nuclear weapons, which is something Japan is worried about themselves. About you have two Koreas and a China that haven't forgotten that you haven't apologized for the occupation and the terrorism that happened during World War II.
Yeah,
we still have not forgotten about that.
Well, chickens have to come home to roost. You got to cut a deal.
Right. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, when you have 3 guns pointed at you now, from a cyber standpoint, you're under duress. So I think what I watched this morning is that Kim is actually planning a meeting with President Abe, or Prime Minister Abe of Japan, because Abe wants to broker a deal too.
You got to make a deal. Same thing with France. Look at what the UK did with the rest of their Commonwealth. They got to broker a deal. They even had to have one of her grandsons marry a black, what we consider a black woman. Yeah, now, they had to broker deals.
Consider a black woman. Now then the Prime Minister of Japan come to the White House a few days ago to meet with Trump.
Probably, I don't remember.
Yeah, he did. He wants to get in on the whole entire North Korea thing, but he doesn't want to do it under Trump.
I wonder why.
Wait, repeat. Okay, so why did he go visit Trump though?
You talked.
He wants to get in, right? He wants to get in under the North Korea deal, but he doesn't want to do it under Trump because, politically speaking, it would make him look weak. So he's going to wait until the Trump blows over, and then he'll go meet Kim in one of these designated areas, whether it's in Okinawa or some other place, to discuss a resolution in between these war pacts that they had set up.
So potentially, just saying potentially, you could have a solidified, in terms of deals, Asian community in terms of China, the two Koreas, and Japan.
Japan, Thailand, Philippines. Well, Japan's running out of time, man. You still have a out of control nuclear reactor spilling nuclear waste into your waters. Okay, how long can you live on that island?
Not too long. And plus, their birth rate is going down, right?
Right, and they also at one point China and Russia wanted to start something called the Asian Union, which is similar to the European Union, and have a one currency, one block mechanism in place. But that would require the United States to leave Okinawa as well as South Korea and the Philippines. And we see that process starting to take place in the Philippines with the President Duterte denouncing the United States and forcing them out in the next year or so to get off the island.
Isn't that's the that's the president that talks a lot, right? Filipino president.
Duarte, yeah.
Okay.
But that feeling has been there for a long time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They started back when they closed Subic Bay, and I think it was an Air Force base back in the 80s. Do you think it was?
Okay, so the
1991 they kicked them out.
1991, yeah. Really, once that volcano Pinatubo actually blew and actually covered half that kind of ruined that Air Force base. There was kind of impetus. Actually, we didn't need them anymore. Just push them right on out. It's right after that volcano blew and actually ruined that Air Force base. Was it Clark? I can't remember the name of the Air Force base, but
okay. So, what does China gain to stand with a united Korea?
It keeps the Americans off their ass.
Yeah. Keeps Americans they can start pushing the Americans off the peninsula, and then they don't have a reason to actually patrol those seas anymore, and plus it gives them goodwill. In other words, we can actually solve your disputes and your problems without a war.
So, go ahead.
So if you look at it, North Korea, Pakistan, in India, even Ethiopia and Eritrea. If they can solve the stuff going on in the Middle East, like between Iraq, Iran, and even the Saudis, if they can solve it without firing a shot, okay, the rest of the world is kind of they're kind of tired of America actually lording over their force. People accept it because you have to have it. You got to have commerce. You got to have some kind of peace and stability. So they were willing to put up with the United States up until the banking crisis. Ever since the banking crisis, the rest of the world pretty much has had enough of the United States, Europe included.
With America out of Korea, that would help China with that One Belt initiative also.
It would help them with the right now. There's a big kind of rift and contest between what's going on in the China Sea, and the reason that the United States has a reason to be in the Sea of Japan and the China Sea is because of what they have bases in Asia, particularly South Korea. You get them out, and
that's why I said if they get them out, then that'll help.
Yeah, and if they get them out, and if China and South Korea actually take up their own Russia and South Korea actually take up their own self-defense and their peacekeeping forces, then the United States doesn't have a reason to be. What other reason does the United States have to be there? I mean, really, you're
out of base.
We're 12,000 miles from your own shores. What reason do you really have to be there? What's your reason for being? What is your legal or even moral reason for actually patrolling the South China Seas with aircraft carriers?
None. You don't have a base there.
You don't have a base there. You have a reason to be there because you're there to actually keep the peace and stability. If that's not your role in Asia anymore, what reason do you have to be there?
At that point, if they do it, they'll be looked upon as really, really bullies at that point.
Yeah, well, then that'll be an escalation of some kind of conflict, which most people don't want, and that's a bad look on them. So
go ahead, Mike.
Hello? What was that?
No. I said I thought you were about to say something.
No, I was just going to follow up with Black Gnostics. Yeah, the bases in South Korea are one thing, and then you have the THAAD system that the Chinese want to take down. Now the THAAD system that the Americans claim is in place for is DPRK's ballistic missile system that can have nuclear capabilities. Now, if these nuclear capabilities are being taken down, do you still need the THAAD system?
You don't.
Right.
And the same thing.
So
go ahead.
Some of the talk, some of the discussion that they've been having about this denuclearization is that they blow up the nuclear sites, they destroy the nuclear sites and decommission these nuclear sites. Then the first thing that has to be taken out of place is the THAAD system. And once the THAAD system goes down, then the handing over of nukes. And once the nukes are on the table to be destroyed, because it takes about 10 years to destroy them, then the troops have to leave too. But I don't foresee American troops crossing the DMZ, going across 1,000 landmines and artillery just to get to Pyongyang. I just don't see them doing that. I think that it's over exaggerated to think that American troops are going to cross the border. If anybody's going to cross the border, it would be actually South Korean troops. But South Korean troops don't even want to leave either. So there's really no reason to keep those American troops there. And at this point, they're going to probably shift those troops from South Korea back to Okinawa, or if not Okinawa, then they're probably going to shift them over to the Middle East.
Yeah, if United States really wanted to sum up North Korea, they could have done that back in 2020. I think it was 2010 or 2011. I think it was 2010 when South Korea and North Korea were getting ready to get at it. I mean, literally getting ready to get at it, and they had to send an emissary to actually and an aircraft carrier to actually come and calm it down. So basically, the United States really does not want to attack North Korea, because they really did. They had all the excuse they needed back 8 years ago. So it's basically political posturing. And every time they get pissed off at China, then they say we're going to attack North Korea. So basically, China's going to take it off the table.
Right, and a lot of the technology that's built inside the South Korean military base on the island off the coast of South Korea is actually penetrating into China's territory, which is what they don't like. It's not even looking at North Korea itself.
Yeah. So basically, it's just one little check. It's just one little piece that's being moved. They're taking one piece off the table, just like being in Pakistan. Okay, once Pakistan joins the SCO, then there's no reason for United States and their drones and their drone bases to actually be there anymore. Get them out.
They're actually gone now.
They're gone?
Yeah, they're actually gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Trump has agreed to lift the sanctions on North Korea. I'm thinking he did this to try not to have the two Koreas unite.
Yeah, possibly. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I think he's done. He's one to save money. Two, that's the only deal that he had to actually come away with something. He had to come away. You can travel all that way to actually meet and actually meet with the guy. You got to come away with something. And the bulk of the stuff has already been done by China. So you come away with something.
Or this could be Trump's going to China like Nixon did in 68 or 67, 68.
71.
Or 71. And
basically, what's his name? Kissinger talked about that. And the reason that they were that they could go is because of the rift between Russia and China, and Russia was getting ready to nuke China, and they asked because they didn't want the United States to interfere. They actually talked to the United States first. So the United States jumped the gun and said, okay, "Guess what we can do? We can bring China on our side." So that's why they sent Kissinger. So it was just a happenstance that there was a rift, and that rift hadn't been healed until 1994, 1995. But Kissinger talks about it in his book on China, and that was the whole impetus. And once, because right after that and the British pound, that's when you saw the de-escalation of Vietnam, and de-escalation of basically a lot of troops in Asia. You know, all the little wars that were going on in Asia, it started the de-escalation because there was a break between the Soviet Union and China. So China then was no longer a threat.
Right.
But Kissinger talks about that extensively in his book on China. and how why he was there and how he got there and why China actually needed help, and on and on and on and on. And then once Kissinger got in and they started de-escalating the troops out of Asia, and that's when Nixon in 1971 actually started um, with formal talks. But it was just a carryover, because Kissinger was actually there long before. In fact, Nixon's. In fact, it was funny. I don't have. I wonder where it is. There was because somebody actually asked Nixon about Kissinger, and he actually slipped and he said he didn't know who Kissinger was. He said Kissinger was actually sent to him. He didn't actually ask for him. He was actually sent. And he didn't say by whom or for what, but he said Kissinger was actually baked into the sauce already. So it wasn't he picked Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger was actually sent to him and said, "This is your guy."
All right.
I wish I could find that quote. But back then, I wasn't as efficient about saving things as I am now.
Now on. So we'll have another article. This is from Press TV. From the Friday, June 8th. Turkey will purchase S-400s from Russia to save our own security. Interior Minister. Turkish Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu says his country has an unalienable right to protect its own security and will spare no efforts to procure sophisticated Russian-made S-400 anti-aircraft missile systems to achieve such a goal. He added the purchase of S-400 anti-missile systems is in Turkey's national interest and does not have anything to do with the politics. The operation of the Russian or air defense systems will strengthen the position of Turkey. Turkey's English language Hürriyet Daily News newspaper cited anonymous diplomatic sources reported on Thursday that American officials had asked their Turkish counterparts not to make use of S-400 missile systems, even if Ankara acquires them under a deal finalized late last year. On April 3rd, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his Russian counterpart Erdogan. Okay. His Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin said in the Turkish they had agreed to expedite the delivery of S-400. The delivery is expected to start between late 2019 and 2020. Hürriyet Daily newspaper reported on December 29th last year that the loan deal for 4 S-400 surface-to-air missile batteries had been signed in Ankara. All right. So Turkey, a lot of countries, we spoke about New Delhi. Who else purchased S-400s?
Qatar.
Yeah, Qatar. Yes, Qatar. And now Turkey. Sudan. Wow. Well, which Sudan? North or South?
Only the North matters. The South isn't nationally established.
Okay. Sudan. Well, no, yeah, Sudan. Now Turkey are purchasing these S-400 missiles from Russia. Obviously, the United States don't like this. Why are we hearing a lot of people a lot of countries purchasing these S-400 missiles lately?
Hey, BGS, you got a lot of static.
I do? Okay.
The reason why you hear a lot of these countries wanting to buy the S-400 system is because it's the most complex and most accurate system on the market in comparison to anything that the Americans have to offer at half the cost. So it only costs $1 billion to buy a whole network of S-400 surface-to-air missile system batteries to put inside your country that can largely defend you against anything that the West has to throw at you. So whether it's cruise missiles, F-35 fighter jets, stealth fighter jets, hypersonic, well, I shouldn't say hypersonic, but because that's the S-500, the Prometheus, but the S-400 can annihilate anything that's anything that's thrown inside the airspace, and it covers a wide range of airspace up to 250 kilometers. So that's why Syria has been pretty safeguarded for most attacks, because the missile systems that's put in place has been able to cover 2/3 of the country, and the rest of the system has been mostly antiquated Soviet Union hardware that is still in use today.
Any comments, BGS?
What do you think? I want to hear what you think.
Well,
you know what I think already.
Well, I know I learned a couple of years ago the United States tried to have, I don't know if this has to do anything to do with it, but the United States did an unsuccessful coup.
An unsuccessful coup, yeah,
in Turkey, and
Turkey was a main NATO operative.
And bring up the map. And Turkey's geographical position is really key in terms of uniting the Middle East to Europe. And since this coup was unsuccessful, that soured the U.S. and Turkey's eyes. Like Mike said, the S-400 system is pretty accurate. Obviously, from a money saving standpoint, you would rather buy something that's both accurate and half the cost of what country.
So how come they didn't do it before?
That I do not know.
Because they were part of NATO. So what does that mean? They're no longer part of NATO, or at least unofficially, they're no longer part of NATO. They switched sides.
Okay.
Well, Germany actually took out their Patriot missile system that was located inside Turkey last summer or 2 summers ago, and actually brought it back to Germany, back to Stuttgart. And no more German troops. Americans cannot fly their fighter jets inside Turkey's airspace at this point. And then nuclear weapons are still locked inside Turkey. They can't get them out because the Turkish government is not allowing them.
They're not allowing. Yeah, there was a big question about what they were going to do with the nukes, even though they have. I don't think Turkey can fire them, but they're not allowing them to move them. So, but they switched sides. So this is just them switch. This is just. It shouldn't come as a surprise to you that they have to purchase or actually get a lot of their hardware from Russia now. It shouldn't surprise you. It should be like, okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. If you can't, there's only two sources. That's from the West, or like the United States for the most part, or from Russia. So where you buy your hardware from, a lot of times determines what side you're on.
Well, don't forget that they also tried to buy the Chinese HQ-9, which is the equivalent of an S-300 system, a couple of years ago, and Turkey could not buy it because it was incompatible with their NATO framework. But now that they are out of NATO, that HQ-9 system would actually fit right in at 1/3 of the cost. But the problem with Chinese hardware is that Chinese hardware is very unreliable from a military standpoint.
It hasn't been tested
really
enough.
Junky.
Yeah, it hasn't been tested enough. It's still early.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You got a lot of African countries that are buying cheap Chinese military hardware. You know, your military transport helicopters that are falling out of the sky, tanks stalling on the battlefield, Norenko AK-47s jamming on the battlefield, not working correctly. It's a mess. Chinese are basically ripping off Africa in terms of selling cheap junk to them, and that really doesn't last long and doesn't work at all.
Yeah, well, it always starts out that way, and it gets better with time. So,
okay,
it'll get better with time.
Now go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that Turkey bought the S-400, Qatar buying the S-400, Saudi Arabia buying the S-400, Iran bought the S-300 last year, but and then you have Syria that just bought the S-400 as well a couple months ago. India buying the S-400. Sudan bought the S-400. Egypt has been promised the S-400. Plus a naval port in the airstrip for Russian battleships, as well as Sukhoi fighter jets and MiG fighter jets. I'm just throwing all that out there to actually add on to the fact that the S-400 and Russian hardware is making its way into the Middle East hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, changing of the guard,
as well as Iraq. Iraq just actually purchased the S-300. S-300 system.
I wonder when Iraq is actually going to flip. I've been waiting on that.
They already did. They bought MiG fighter jets as well as T-72 battle tanks with the S-400 surface-to-air missile system, and then you have Afghanistan being brought in by Russian presidential planes for the Taliban into Moscow. So they're building an embassy for the Taliban inside Moscow or outside of Moscow.
I love it when a plan comes together. I mean, it's there's not that many moves left on the board. I mean, I know I've given you guys a lot of enough information for you actually follow the playbook as it goes along. So none of this should surprise you. It's just a matter of United States is run out of money, and they can't support this anymore. So they have to pull back, and everybody knows they have to pull back. And the Russians and the Chinese have money, and plus they're right there. So
yeah, the Russians have the hardware, the Chinese have the money.
And the money, they're right there. I mean, they're right there. So this is their backyard, and the United States is going to have to concentrate more on protecting its backyard, which is Latin America, which I suspect will be the next move. Either they got to come down there with some kind of force, or they're going to have to do some kind of deals. Europe is already trying to do deals with Africa. That's what Soros is trying to tell them.
Yeah, we'll get into that one later.
Yeah, that's what Soros is trying to, in other words, they got to do deals with Africa. They can't use force anymore. Gaddafi in Libya was basically their last gasp in Africa as far as force is concerned.
What's the difference between the S-300 and the S-400?
Range and accuracy. The range on the S-300, and S-300 is actually Soviet hardware. The S-400 is actually modern Russian hardware. So the S-300 actually came out in the early 80s, late 70s, and wasn't really deployed that far outside of Russia or outside the Soviet Union bloc. And once the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of that stuff was consolidated right back into Russia. So the S-400 actually makes up for the lack of accuracy and range that the S-300 had or did not have.
Okay. Well, now, BGS, you said Latin America. Do you mean the Caribbean Latin America or South America?
No, I'm talking South America, Latin America, South America.
South America.
No, the Caribbean is not considered Latin America.
Okay. Does that include Mexico? But
no, not really. Central America on down is considered Latin America. Mexico is considered North America.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Our next topic is from Press TV again. This article is from Friday, June 8th. Yemenis target Saudi position with ballistic missiles. Missile units of the Yemeni army and volunteer forces from popular committees have reported firing domestically built ballistic missiles that targeted Saudi Arabia's military position in Najran and Khamis Mushait. No report has been released on the outcome of the missile strikes on Friday. Yemeni forces regularly fire ballistic missiles at military and economic targets inside Saudi Arabia in retaliation for the Riyadh-led brutal campaign against the impoverished country. The development came a day after Yemeni forces repeatedly killed a number of Saudi mercenaries in the west of the country, citing a military source. Local news outlets reported that Yemeni forces destroyed an armored vehicle with a guided missile in Al-Faza area, south of Yemen's western province of Huyada on Thursday. Saudi troops and their mercenaries are currently pushing to seize the Yemeni port of Huyada, through which the bulk of international humanitarian aid enters war-torn Yemen. A separate report by Yemen's Arabic language Al Masirah television network on Thursday said Yemeni snipers had slain at least 6 mercenaries in Yemen's western province of Taiz on Wednesday, adding that they had also managed to destroy a military vehicle in the Jabal Habashi area, killing an unsuspected number of mercenaries traveling in it. The report added that Yemeni forces also attacked gatherings of mercenaries with heavy artillery fire in Saudi Arabia's southwestern province of Jizan, killing an unspecified number of them and inflicting damage on their hardware and equipment. Saudi Arabia and its allies launched a war on Yemen in March 2015 to install a former regime that had been loyal to Riyadh. The war and an accompanying blockade have caused famine across Yemen. The United Nations said a record 22.2 million people are in need of food aid, including 8.4 million threatening to fight severe hunger. Several Western countries, the United States and Britain in particular, are accused of being complicit in the aggression as they supplied the Riyadh regime with advanced weapons and military equipment, as well as logistical and intelligence assistance. According to figures released by the Yemeni Ministry of Human Rights, more than 600 people have been killed or injured in the Saudi war since 2015. Now, Mike, I remember a few weeks ago we discussed that. I'm bring up the map. Saudi Arabia can't even destroy or kill off a bunch of uh,
Guys run around in sandals and towels around their head.
right. The article specifically said Yemeni forces regularly fire ballistic missiles at military and economic targets inside Saudi Arabia. And we discussed a few weeks ago how they actually shot a missile that hit Saudi Arabia's oil refinery, was it?
Aramco.
Aramco. So they routinely do this, and Saudi Arabia still cannot stop it.
Because Saudi Arabia is afraid to go in on foot. So what they're doing is they're getting African mercenaries, all these loose Nigerians, loose Libyans, loose Sudanese guys who can't find jobs, who are desperate for work, putting AK-47s in their hands and a helmet on their head, and as well as Latin American drug cartel members, and sending them into Yemen, and these guys are getting their heads chopped off almost immediately when they hit the ground.
It's not funny, but I mean,
well, they leave them out there to die, right? It's 120 degrees, 130 degrees. Either you're going to get shot or you're going to die from dehydration.
And obviously, they don't care. It's they're expendable bodies.
And Saudi doesn't have enough population to actually fight this kind of war.
Saudi Arabia's population is normally on by the Red Sea or the Persian Gulf.
Yeah, but I'm saying they don't have enough people, period,
to
actually go in and fight this physical kind of war, because the ground wars take troops, and they take trained troops. You don't have enough of each. And Saudi Arabia has never built up a standing army, and they've been trying to do it with technology. And some things you can't do with technology, which is occupy a country. Can't be done, especially a guerrilla war like this.
If you go back to 1979 when the Egyptians invaded Yemen, they lost 30,000 guys, I think, in less than 1 year.
Yemen's that good?
Well, Yemen is hard to fight in. It's a lot of mountainous terrain. It's goat paths. You can't send your tanks in there. Yep. Your Humvees get stuck in the sand. It's just not. It's not a really good place to fight. No one has ever won a war inside Yemen.
It's same thing with that. Same thing with Afghanistan.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah. It's not basically what you do is you isolate them if you can, but it's not a whole lot that you can do.
And keep in mind that a lot of their weapons that you see being fired, those ballistic missiles, came out of North Korea. Early in after the Soviet Union collapsed, in North Korea was starving for money. They sold off a lot of their hardware to Yemen, and as well as some of these African countries. And they made a pretty penny, but a lot of that hardware got stale and needs to be used. Very ishy. Yeah, need to be used. And so what you see now is the Yemeni fighters are actually repurposing those that military hardware against Saudi Arabia. However, Saudi Arabia keeps running back to the United States, looking for more weapons and technology that Lockheed Martin and the rest of these Raytheon companies are willing to sell. At $700 billion, but you spent $700 billion. You came and beat a couple of guys with sandals on their feet and towels wrapped around their head.
Yeah, because there's always holes. There's always holes in technology, and there's some things that there's some things that technology cannot do, which is fight a ground war. I mean, especially an urban ground war or a mountainous ground war, because it's not built for that. You get them out on a flat desert and a flat terrain, you can actually do that, but unless you have even if you have helicopters and you have air power, it doesn't do any good in that terrain. Doesn't do any good.
Now, go ahead.
We still fight. We still fight. We still fight in Afghanistan. You never cowed. Look at how many empires went to Afghanistan and died because you can't fight there.
Now, Mike, did you say Saudi Arabia purchased the S-400 or S-400, S-300 from Russia?
S-400.
S-400. They
haven't received it. I don't think they'll receive it for a couple of years, but they purchased it as an investment. They ran to Moscow when all this Qatari blockade started happening. So they ran to Moscow and was looking for help. And what Putin had to offer was the S-400 system too.
Now, my question is this: with this blockade, these Persian Gulf countries have on Qatar, especially I think we spoke about it last week when Qatar purchased the S-400s. Wow.
To keep Saudi Arabia off their ass. If they attack Yemen, Qatar's next.
Yeah. Now, why? Okay, if Saudi Arabia is purchasing the S-400s, why are they mad at Qatar? Now, okay, I understand to protect them.
Yeah. What are the S-400s for? They're for protect your airspace, right?
You know what?
They're not an offensive weapon. They're a defensive weapon.
I just answered my own question.
Yeah, they want to be able. In other words, if they have it, and basically, Saudi's main force projection is what? Air power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if they're not going to come, they're not going to send ground troops into Qatar. They're going to send airplanes.
Okay. It's common sense to get.
And they've lost. They've lost quite a few. They lost quite a few F-16 fighter jets already. So and going over Yemen. So, Saudi Arabia is a very fragile state. They're fragile politically and they're fragile militarily speaking, as well as civilian wise as well, because they don't have enough jobs to facilitate for these people that are unemployed, and a lot of their labor comes from the outside. It comes from the Philippines. It comes from India. It comes from all these highly technologically skilled areas where the people on the ground that are actually citizens don't have anywhere to work, and they're pretty dissatisfied. And the way you pacify them is with Wahhabism sort of ideology, where it keeps them in a very passive state. And if they need to get rid of those people, then what they do, they send them to places like Syria and send them to Libya and to go cause massacre and chaos on the population, so that they don't come back to Saudi Arabia and try to take them down. So they're very, very fragile all around, and as well as they're running out a lot of cash because the money that they were making selling oil per barrel is not the same as what there was 5 and 6 years ago. You know, it was making $140 per barrel on oil, and now they're only making about $35 to $40 a barrel on oil. So they took a big slump, as well as they took a big hit on oil, as well as spending all this money on hardware from the United States that really doesn't suit their needs, their immediate needs. So now what they're trying to do is diversify their portfolio by creating this new Silicon Valley, which is the NEMO project.
Yeah.
Right, and they know their days are numbered.
Well, it basically is the Pax Americana is going away. I mean, it is what it is. So you're gonna have to cut other deals, which is something. Man, hell, we talked about that shit back in 2006 or something like that. What would the world look like once Pax Americana starts to ebb, it's no longer there. How would the world reshape itself? So we're starting to get a good glance about how it's going to reshape itself.
Everyone like I say they're going a technological route because I remember
Mm-hmm.
I saw that what's the Neon project, new city project that they doing the Nemo.
Yeah.
The
Neom.
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 And that's the like you said, the Silicon Valley of Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, where are they getting these? You mentioned they're using Latin drug lords. Where are they getting them from?
Go to Latin America and get them.
Yeah.
You got the cash.
Yeah, just bring them across. They actually coming through. They actually come regularly through from the Latin America to Brazil to Nigeria.
Yeah.
Lots of them in Nigeria because they run drugs through. There's a big pipeline going from Brazil to Nigeria to Europe. So you can find lots of them. If you can load up a C-150, was it C-151 or something like that?
C-130
with drugs, C-130 with drugs, you can load them up with troops, with people, bring them over. You bring them across.
They're getting these people. Like I'm just restating this to embed it in my mind. They're getting these people
from Nigeria, right?
Yeah.
And basically Sudan. Okay, Sudan. But what I'm saying is, you have a big pipeline coming from Latin America to the Sahel, which is right above Nigeria, and into Europe. So there's a regular pipeline from there. In fact, who's it? Stratford actually. If I can find, I have to actually look for this stuff. But actually, Stratford actually had a map of how this pipeline actually works.
That I know. It's just that I'm trying to think. You said they get these people from Nigeria, the Latin drug lords and everybody else,
and
they're putting them to war with the Yemen, with the Yemenis fighters.
Yeah,
and
mercenaries. Yeah,
these people have no type of military training. And
actually, they do have military training.
But not for the environment that they've been put in. They're trained for tropical environments, not desert. There's two different kinds. Yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying is that on paper, they're security contractors. But realistically, they're just cartel members. But the attitude that Latin America has is, the better they are over there, it works for us. Over here, we don't actually have to facilitate these people anymore.
Yeah.
So they'll happily get rid of these criminals and send them over to the Middle East.
Yeah, and especially when you get their, we get their money, that whatever contract they're under, the money goes back to the country. So it facilitates them too.
Goodness gracious! So
that's how they deal with their Ray Ray and Pookies.
Yeah.
Let's continue on that note. But goodness gracious, so countries like Colombia is just freely sending people over here.
The United States is too. The only thing is, the United States is more expensive and they're better trained.
They did the same thing in Georgia. United States sent a lot of black men, African American men, into the Georgia war against the Russians in 2008. And when the Russians got there, there's actually a video on YouTube describing that. And it said when the Russians got there, it said it was a whole bunch of black men out there. And it said, where are all these black men coming from?
they're mercenaries. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay. Thank you, Blackwater.
What's Blackwater?
Well, I forget, what are they called now, Mike? Instead of
Academy.
Yeah. Yeah. Blackwater was Blackwater took a lot of the Gulf War vets that were actually coming out of out of the Gulf War, and actually that already had military training. And once they got out, they made them contractors, and some contractors actually served in the Gulf War. In fact, a lot of them served in the Gulf War, and then when that peters out, they sent them elsewhere. So they're basically The mercenaries do. In fact, Blackwater does the Blackwater's in the they're in the Emirates, aren't they? Or the Academy League, because they're outlawed in the United States. They're actually in the Emirates, aren't they?
They're inside Libya. They have an air base inside Libya.
Oh, that's where they're located now, in Libya. Okay.
Well,
I know
Blackwater as the mercenary force that are stationed inside Libya as a contracting group for the Gulf Coast Gulf Coast Council, which is the GCC, because Qatar and the rest of Saudi Arabia were robbing Libya of all their gold.
Okay.
Now, Academy as a security contractor is actually operating inside the United States under law enforcement. Now, Trump, Betsy DeVos is actually the sister of Eric Prince, which is how they're trying to facilitate a lot of this money.
Do tell.
This is why I'm quiet a lot. I'm listening and learning.
Do tell. I didn't know DeVos was actually Eric Prince's sister.
Yeah, that's how she got in, and that's how he's getting his money's worth. I know Boston Police uses Academy a lot. They use it for the Boston Marathon. That's how they were able to break up the whole entire bombing situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to go out on a limb here and say,
and they're probably training. That's probably how come the police are actually using Israeli tactics inside the United States. So that so basically they're starting to treat the citizens like an occupying force, just like the Israelis treat the Palestinians.
Right. They use Blackwater inside Ferguson during the Ferguson riots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what all the personnel, the armored personnel carriers were actually about. That was a test.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tried to do it again in Baltimore, but the people got so upset they kind of backed off from doing that.
Right, and that's where the next step is Chicago, because Chicago can't pay its bills, or the state of Illinois can't pay its bills. So the urgency to lay off police officers and bring in private contractors like Blackwater will be the money pit for them.
Well, yeah. Well, somebody's got to pay for it, though. The thing is, mercenaries are normally more expensive than police. Now, and then will these, if you start bringing in mercenaries and stuff like that, will you get a civil war? That'll be a question. That's going to be something to see. See if these alt-right folks are made of what they think they're made of.
Yeah.
That's the reason they pull. That's the reason they pull those personnel carriers. They didn't care about black folks. They cared about the alt-right. The alt-right was getting ready to get in on this once they saw those tanks, those armored personnel carriers armed with weapons. Okay, that kind of sparked up the alt-right, which is probably why they really canceled. There's a lot of alt-right that came into Ferguson when they saw them tanks. A lot of white people came into Ferguson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, I forgot who mentioned. I think it was you, BGS.
What did I say?
Netanyahu went to Moscow.
Oh yeah, 3 times, 2 or 3 times. Yeah, you probably Google it. Yeah, why?
Because isn't Israel and United States hand in hand? And
don't forget, you're forgetting.
You don't understand the Jews or Israel, do you?
I'm learning. That's all I have to say.
The Jews in Israel are way more pragmatic than you think they are. They're not as they actually chant all this ideology, but they are amoral. What they care about is survival of the Israeli state. That's what they're concerned about, and they will kowtow to whatever power that will actually facilitate the survival of the Israeli state. If it's not the United States, just like they left France and the UK as far as being on their side and jumped on the side of the United States.
And don't forget that half of the oligarchs in Russia are actually Jews or Zionists to begin with. They make a lot of decisions inside the inside Russia's House of Parliament, whatever their political cabinet is.
Mm-hmm.
Putin
and Israel actually acts as an intermediary between United States and Russia to force negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
So the pulling back of American troops inside Syria was largely brokered by Israel and Putin, Netanyahu and Putin. Now you see that today they're replacing American troops with Italian troops as of this week.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Putin send an oligarch to jail for 10 years because he's trying to dislodge them from the politics?
Well, in other words, basically he came in. There's a very good. I'm trying to think of the name of the book. I think it's How I Made It in Russia, or something like that, where she talked about Putin came in. Putin is a royal. He's a Prussian royal, and he came in and basically took over. He actually used the force of the government, force of the old military and security apparatus. Actually forced the oligarchs to actually get in line, and if they didn't get in line, they were actually killed or put in jail. Because he told them, I don't care how much money you make, but this is how things are going to run. As long as you run it the way I said you're going to run it, you continue to make money. If you don't, you're either going to jail or the lucky ones go to jail. The unlucky ones don't.
And an oligarch is a rich business person that influence politics.
They're carpetbaggers, basically. The one came in and raped Russia of riches, and Putin came in. Putin came once Russia got back on his up off his knees. Putin came in and to clean things up. So there's still oligarchs that still make money. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. The Americans came in and picked off a lot of Russian assets after the Soviet Union collapsed under Clinton.
Yep.
And the Russians were running scared. And I think you posted a video before about crime in Russia skyrocketing after the collapse of the Soviet Union. People eating out of dumpsters and starving to death, and criminal mischief going out of control, and that's what brought Putin to power.
Yep. Bring order back to Russia. Russia, basically, it's an authoritarian culture, and basically, you can't bring liberal order to an authoritarian country. It doesn't work.
Yeah, that even I know that.
Doesn't work. Hell yeah, it barely works in our country.
All right, last topic is I saw this on MSNBC, and I saw your video on it.
Yeah,
future is African. The United States is not prepared. And that has something to do with the George Soros, what he's saying, invest in Africa, and a big reason why China is in Africa, just to get ahead of the curve. A lot of development in Africa. And you were saying they're saying 40%, but that's conservative numbers. And I know the population pyramid for Africa and India is heavy on the young side. So Africa and India will have the youngest, well, the largest population in the future.
They're very underdeveloped, and as you develop, there's a peak, like right in the middle. That would you have a population explosion right in the middle, where the balance between high fertility and high survivability kind of meet, and you get a big spike in your population. And so that's why I said it's conservative. And it's done. And basically, demographers are conservative because they have to project like 50, 60, maybe 100 years out. So they're kind of conservative. But if you have that big spike in the middle, then you could easily triple the population within a period of like maybe 60, 70 years. I mean, easily. Because that's what happened. That's how come you have so many African Americans in the United States. We went from less than 500, less than like from 400,000 to like 4 million within a period of 80 years, because they started breeding them, and the fertility rate for an African slave or a black female was 9. So they basically the population went up tenfold within a period of 80 years, from like 400,000 to like 4 million, which scared the bejesus out of white people.
It's 4 million though.
Yeah, but the thing is, they went up tenfold in 80 years, and for the next 100 years, basically
stagnated.
It pretty much stagnated. Yeah, because you look at from 1865 to like 1945, it went from 4 million. You only added 8 million people, which is still tripled. But the thing is, it wasn't as explosive as it was from the previous 80 years.
And this article is saying, what was it? 1 in every 4 human beings will be African.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of African people. And even when I was in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
I was around, and after I saw that article and I saw your video, I was just looking around at the VA. I was at the VA, I was looking around, and I was like, man, it is right. I just saw a lot of black people. But
don't forget.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that 2/3 of Africa's population right now are millennials under the age of 35.
Yep. Fast growing, and the only thing is that there's been keeping it down is a high child mortality rate. It's the only thing that's been keeping it down. But as you bring in cleaner water, cleaner food, more of an artificial environment away from the natural environment, a lot of those children are going to survive. And if you keep up a high fertility rate, instead of like 60–70% of those children not living, you're going to have the opposite. What's going to happen? You have a big population explosion. And because most, I think the average lifespan for most Africans is like it's like 51 or 52. What happens when it becomes 70 or 80 like everybody else?
a lot of people.
A lot of people, yeah. A lot of young people. So it's going to this huge explosion, which is Europe is afraid of. And Soros is basically saying you can't stop this. You can't stop it. And if you don't develop them or help China develop their country, what's going to happen is all those people are going to come to Europe, and they're going to actually overrun Europe and basically swamp you out as a population because your population is diminishing. You have a diminishing population that's dying out and a rising population. If you look at those, if you look at the fertility rates from Europe to Africa, it's like the African fertility rate is like triple of what Europe is. Basically triple for the rest of the world.
Is Europe fertility rate negative?
Yeah, anything below 2 is negative.
Because you're not replacing yourself.
Yeah, you need 2.11 people to actually replace, just to stay stagnant, because you're gonna get some death. But the thing is, a woman has to have one for her and one for you. And if she anything below that, then she doesn't replace the guy, and that cuts it in half. Basically in half. And when you have some fertility rates that are like, I think I was looking at a chart, some are like 7. Yeah, so then a lot of the underdeveloped people, underdeveloped countries are having fertility rates of like 7. So if it takes a long time to change culture. It takes at least 2 or 3 generations to change culture. So even though you're changing technology, their culture will still produce a certain amount of children. So in other words, if you look at past fertility rates, say for like the United States, it took 100 years for the fertility rate to go from like 7 or 8 down to 3, which is 3 is still high compared to modern technology, modern fertility rates. But in 100 years, man, you can have a quadrupling of the African continent. You might have 4 billion people in Africa by the time you hit the 22nd century.
Yeah,
they're saying by 2080 it will be up to 2.1 billion.
Yeah, and when I say that's conservative.
And I remember you saying the 22nd century could very well be African.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you have people, young people especially, technology, which they're getting now, resources and money. Okay, the thing is holding them back. They have people and have resources. What don't they have? Money and technology. They're getting technology now, and money is coming. So if you combine all 4 of those things, they will have more of that than anybody.
So for millennial African American, it will behoove that person to invest in Africa.
Yeah, and I would say for Generation Z, those kids are just now that are teenagers.
They
They
reaching
see,
18 now.
yeah. Well, they did. Some of the Z's are just reaching the teen. Their late teens and 20s. Um, Start looking for jobs and opportunities in Africa if you're black, especially if you're black.
So, because I'm changing my major to,
Hmm.
I was gonna do accounting, but since we've been having our automation talks Monday, I've been learning a lot, and I know, and I've been learning, that's not really what I want to go into since automation is taking over jobs, and
Hmm.
so I'm going to change some to the computer field, and I've been looking at this blockchain.
What did you do? What did you do when you were in the service?
Cook.
A cook? Well, hey.
Nah, no, I hated that. I
Oh,
really
okay.
hated that.
Oh,
I despised it. Oh my god.
You can be a cook engineer.
Yeah. Open up a restaurant and put in automation. Open up a chain of restaurants and especially in East Africa where they're developing.
Now, I mean, I know how everything goes, the prep, the to keep everything clean. I know that, because
Hmm.
being on a submarine, you really hands on.
Hmm.
It's so many of us on this that can fit on the submarine, so your job duties are wide. But that's a good idea. But since I'm into crypto and I went on the EDX website,
Hmm.
they have some courses concerning blockchain.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got time, so yeah, you can learn anything you want.
Yeah, I'm trying to sign up for a class right now, but the sign up is slow.
Hmm.
Um, okay, yeah, and I've been hearing a lot of African Americans being talking about that are actually boots on the ground in Ghana or
Hmm.
Nigeria, Cameroon
Hmm.
area. That's amazing, though.
Yeah, well, it's just getting started. It's been slow, so it's I'm glad to see it because I say a lot of us been pounding the pavement and actually tooting the horn for this. So I'm glad to see now that it's becoming obvious people actually getting it. Now, I told my partner a long time ago he was kind of dejected that people weren't getting it. I said they'll get it when they need to get it. I said when it
Mm.
becomes obvious that they'll actually follow it. But things you will already have a plan laid out and a path laid out. So a lot of um a lot of people that are actually doing this, the path has already been laid out ahead of time. So all they have to do is follow. Say, oh, I can do this, 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 and this because it's already been laid out. All you have to do is go over and do it now.
Okay. Now, when you say look for jobs in Africa, I'm guessing that it's going to be a wide job market in terms of
Hmm.
higher, more professional jobs. Um,
Yeah, well, jobs and businesses, especially because um, you can find jobs if you have a particular skill, like tech is always like somebody like Mike can go over in Africa and just throw a dart pretty much and get hired. Um,
Kill it.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're in the petroleum business or mining, you can always find a job. There's lots of ways you can find. If you're a farmer, um,
Mm.
if you're a farmer, you can find a job.
Now that's something I would do. I would love to have. I know over there instead they use the acre system. They use the hectare system.
Hmm.
I would love to have some few hectares of land and
Hmm.
do the farming. That I'm I would love to do that.
Yeah. The thing is, you think is that farming there it will probably not be as easy as farming here because you don't have the getting the technology in and that kind of stuff, fuel, power, all that kind of stuff. It's you basically gonna have to do it almost from scratch. So in certain places. So it depends on where you go.
Okay.
I put one more link in the group chat. That should be the final one for tonight. But I figured that one was really important too.
All right. What we got here? Oh, okay. China. Okay, this is for the BBC,
Hmm.
June 9th. China hackers steal data from U.S. Navy contractor
Mm.
reports.
Mm.
Oh, okay. The
Okay.
FBI is investigating after the Chinese government hacked a U.S. Navy contractor and stole highly sensitive security data, U.S. media say.
Mm.
Data stolen in the breach include plans for a supersonic missile project, U.S. officials told the Washington Post. The attacks in January and February of this year were
Mm.
confirmed by CBS News. Hackers targeted a contractor linked to a U.S. military organization that contracts research and conducts research and development for submarines and underwater weaponry. In a separate development, a former U.S. intelligence officer was convicted on charges of giving top secret documents to a Chinese agent. Kevin Mallory, 61, was found guilty under the Federal Espionage Act on Friday. He is due to be charged on September 21st and faces a maximum penalty of life in prison, the U.S. Justice Department said in a statement. Um, okay. In the case of the U.S. Navy contractor, U.S. officials told the Washington Post that the firm had been working for the Navy Undersea Warfare Center, a military organization based in Newport, Rhode Island. They added that among the material accessed were data relating to a project known as Sea Dragon, as well as information held within the Navy Submarine Development Unit's electronic warfare library. Plans included an anti-ship missile system to be installed on U.S. submarines by 2020, while the data was stored on an unclassified that's bad. While unclassified network belonging to the contractor, it was considered highly sensitive due to the nature of the technology under development and the links to military projects. A commander of the U.S. Navy, Bill Speaks, said that measures were in place requiring companies to notify the government when a cyber incident had occurred on networks that contain controlled, unclassified information. It would be inappropriate to discuss further details at this time, he added. The investigation is being led by the Navy with the assistance of the FBI, officials said. On Friday, U.S. Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis ordered a review into possible cybersecurity issues relating to the contractor. CBS News reports, citing the Pentagon Inspector General's office. The news comes days after a summit in Singapore at which U.S. President Donald Trump will meet North Korean leader Kim Jong un, who counts Beijing among his allies. This thing was on unsecured network.
It happens.
So what do you think happened, Mike?
Everybody has admin access within the federal government, as well as your contractors and your third party. For whatever reason, they just have admin access. Everybody has full escalation privileges. They have access to information, just like Snowden had access to information. For whatever reason, they prefer this style, and I guess it's so that there's no restrictions on what they want at the time that they do want it. Whether it's Hillary Clinton or staffer or something to that effect. But they know that this stuff is unsecure, but for whatever reason, they still allow these people to get in. Where I work and what I do for work, I would never allow something like that to happen. I do audits every week, and that would never happen under my watch.
Okay.
But in terms of this, I guess this guy had been watching the network for quite some time before he can even make this sort of decision.
Well, he knew. Basically, he watched it and he saw an opportunity. Huh? Well, you guys are basically computer folks or hackers are really clever, and the best person to actually notice a hole or a breach or something like that is somebody on the inside. How they can actually make money from it.
Well, it wasn't even a breach. He just had full access to it.
Okay, and basically he was bought out. I hope it was enough. Hope it was enough money.
Because that's automatic death penalty right there.
Well, he won't get the death penalty.
Yeah, I know he won't. But in the olden days,
that's how come Snowden split. You know, Snowden didn't just decide to run because he got scared and ran one day. He knew the jig was up. He split. Because if he hadn't, he'd probably been one of these guys. facing prison. That's how come he can't come back. But
Well,
go ahead.
He went to Russia because you can't fly drones over Russia. You can't be droned over there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he knows better than to actually hang around in some allied state. Even in Latin America, he wouldn't be able to survive because contractors would come in and come get him. They even sent an extract team inside Russia. They sent an extract team inside Moscow to actually try to bring him out. And the Russian FSB had actually deterred that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically he can never leave. But I mean, even the Chinese said we can't protect you here, and they sent him to Russia.
Right.
He can never leave Russia, or he can never leave.
He can't leave Russia. Can't leave.
Well, what I'm saying is, you know what? If you're flying out of Moscow, and Edward Snowden's on your plane, I would say get off and take the next plane. You don't want to be on that plane.
Well, remember last in 2016 or 2015 when the Bolivian president flew from Russia back to Bolivia, NATO actually brought his plane down to see if Snowden was on there. And they said that has never ever happened in world history, in at least modern history, that a presidential plane was brought down by another foreign power.
Yeah, he's done so much damage to American security. He can never leave. So he might as well just learn Russian and become an old man. Unless he gets so old, it doesn't make any difference. I think there'll be people still hunting him, just like what's his name, Mangala or whatever is the other guy. They'll be hunting him for the rest of his life. He can never leave.
So he's inside of Moscow right now.
Who knows where he is?
He's in Moscow. He's in Moscow. He has a job. He works every day. It's he's some kind of security contractor or security analyst. But he could leave Russia if he wants to. It's just a matter of how much is he willing to sacrifice, right? So so the agreement that they had before was that he will go to Germany and testify and be able to fly back to Moscow. He didn't take that option because he must know something else, because he probably doesn't want to end up like Julian Assange and end up in some embassy he can't get out of.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Or some hole, some pit. I think what Julian Assange is and what Snowden is are two different things. They're those two different levels. The United States will pay more than enough money and put in more than enough efforts and make more than enough deals to get his ass. So he can never leave. He can never leave Moscow. Right. There's probably parts of Russia he can't go to without fear of him losing his life, because they will find his ass wherever he is. He can be under the 20 feet under the underground. They'll actually find him.
And he said he only released 10% of what he actually has on that thumb drive. So far is the documents pertaining to who the CIA is actually wiretapping in Brazil, which is how Dilma Rousseff got overthrown, because CIA actually used the NSA to wiretap Petrobras, which is the Brazilian oil company, to overthrow Dilma Rousseff under a coup. And then they used the same thing in Italy, and the Italian government actually brought in the American ambassador and threatened to actually throw him out of the country, because their phone was being wired, their Blackberries were being wiretapped, or their iPhones were being wiretapped, as well as Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany. Her phone was being wiretapped, and the technology that they were using was Israeli technology that is now being used by the DEA and all the alphabet agencies in the United States to actually unlock iPhone if you don't give them the passcode.
Yeah, he's done a hell of a lot of damage, and I know if I was the NSA, I'd be looking for his ass for the rest of his life.
Yeah, NSA actually wouldn't go after him. It would actually just be FBI, which is threat investigation. They would actually be the ones to go after him. But
I mean, I'm not talking about officially.
Oh,
you know, Mike, if you were part of the NSA, you'd be looking for Edward Snowden for the rest of his life. He couldn't pop up anywhere.
Oh, you mean from a network perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's off the grid. He's completely off the grid.
Yeah.
He he learned Russian from what I the last video I saw of him on YouTube. He can actually speak Russian now. So I mean, he's a fairly talented person and fairly high IQ. So
yeah, that's how come he got a lot of access, is because he was really talented and since
well, he had
yeah, go ahead.
He had full admin access just like everybody else does.
Yeah, and plus his mother is she's a computer professor, and his father is what is his father? His father's part of the military. I can't remember what his rank was. Yeah. DHS. Oh, yeah. So
his mother works for the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. So basically, he was highly trusted, and if you were going to trust somebody with high level security, he'd be one. So for a guy like him to turn, it's like being stabbed in the back almost. So he's done a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why you guys even try this anymore.
Well,
like this dude, yeah.
There's so many social justice warriors out there like him. That's who compromised Hillary Clinton and the DNC.
Mm.
Social justice warriors, basically the wannabe Bernie-crats and these liberals who had the skill set.
Yeah. Well, I said at the beginning it's only one of three groups that could actually do it, and the Chinese are the third, and they had no reason to do it. So it had to either be somebody inside us or them. So there's a whole bunch of people didn't like Hillary Clinton. A whole bunch inside the United States, and the security apparatus didn't like Hillary Clinton. So,
all right. Any last comments?
I don't have anything.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is this is a long-term thing, man. Like, Jesus, we beat the pavement, man, for years and years and years and years until it cracked. And so I would say to you guys, it's just patience. Just keep as you see more and you learn more, you just start noticing more things that used to escape you, like headlines and stuff like that. They drop in and now they're obvious. Like a year ago, it passed right by, you wouldn't even notice it. But now it's like, oh yeah, I know where that's going. Let me look.
Yeah, just like when you mentioned that Netanyahu going to Moscow, it really caught my attention.
Mm-hmm. Now you know where to look, and now you will actually follow it and see what actually precipitates from it. Like once you see it, then you get your heads up and say, okay, now, like when Kim Jong-un was at the Winter Olympics, right? Now he very seldom leaves North Korea. And he definitely wouldn't leave North Korea for South Korea, especially Seoul, or during the Winter Olympics, right? And now, why would he and the president or premier of South Korea and China and Xi all meet up in the same place at the same time?
Something going on.
It doesn't make sense. Something's going on. Yeah. And then
go ahead. He actually sent his sister as a more of a soft approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he sent his. What I'm saying,
trying to use his sister. Yeah, trying to use his sister in the same way that Trump tried to use Ivanka.
Yeah, what I'm saying is June was actually there as a guest. That's what caught my nose. And then they were all three there at the same time. I said, okay, something's up. And then after that, it's like, okay, now let me sit back and see what comes of it, because I think there's something going on. Same thing with what's going on with Netanyahu and Putin. So you sit back in the cut and said, okay, now I'm going to watch
the game.
Because Mike can tell you the biggest thing about security work, anything about knowing where to look, because there's so much information that floods through the channels and over the web that if you don't know what to look for, you'll never find it, because it's like a needle in a haystack. And if you don't have a magnet to actually draw that needle out, you'll never find it. So the thing is about bringing stuff into your awareness. Once you bring your stuff into your awareness, then you know where to look. And once you know where to look, then you'll always find it. You'll always find it.
Yeah.
So basically, it's just bringing up your awareness. The more things you're aware of and know where they actually fit, then when the information comes in, it'll only come in for a minute and then it'll go away. It'll pop up for a minute and then it'll get lost. So when it pops up, you see it, and then you say, get yourself an Evernote and store that stuff. And sooner or later, those little pieces will kind of add up into a whole picture. And then you have the whole picture, and people wonder, well, who did you talk to, or who told you? And nobody told you anything. You just watched.
You just picked up breadcrumbs.
You just picked up the breadcrumbs and started following them. And once you follow them, because sooner or later, I don't care what policy it is. I'm gonna tell you guys this, and I'll let you guys go. I don't care what policy it is. If it's just two people setting the policy, somebody has to carry the policy out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have to disseminate the policy. And then they have to talk to each other. And they all can't be in the same room at the same time. So they have to put out like whole meetings and whole press releases and disseminate this through the media and whatnot. It will always come out. It won't come out and it won't tell you the whole story, but it'll give you a piece. And once you know where to look and you follow the pieces will actually come out sometimes sooner, sometimes later. But they will actually come out and they'll actually give you the whole picture. And sometimes, say like the Asian currency crisis, I didn't understand it until like 10 years later. But once I understood what it was about and actually start backtracking and said, okay, this is the reason that all these events were actually happening. And then you start to get a bigger picture. And sometimes it takes that long. It's just how much patience do you have and how long are you going to look? But once you I'm actually giving you guys like a shortcut.
Okay.
Okay, look here, look here, look here, look here, and this is what you look for, and this is how you be patient. Because I didn't learn it that way. I had to actually make mistakes and go down wrong roads and wrong paths, and I'm wrong about a lot of things. But eventually, okay, instead of guessing, you said, okay, if there's an event, it can go one of three ways. You say this way, that way, or this way, and then you wait and see which direction it actually goes. And once it starts going that direction, then you cut off the other two branches. Say it's headed this way. Now we're gonna see what they're gonna do with it. But that's how you do it. It's not hard. It's just patience.
Yeah,
you guys are probably finding it out now. It's not hard. It's just patience.
Yeah, I'm learning that patience.
Yeah, it's patience. That's
like
all it is.
It's not gonna come out all at once.
No, it never does. It never does. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that we did actually miss one. I think I sent it to you, Lionel, which was the Armenian coup.
Mm-hmm.
That happened recently. The United States is actually behind that. And if you look, a lot of people are looking at Kim Kardashian and they're saying, well, why is Kim Kardashian rubbing elbows with Trump? Well, the Americans are actually getting all the Armenians from California, the rich Armenians, and using these people as leverage to get their way into Armenia because the Russians control Armenia.
Okay, Martin, and plus Turkey, who used to have more of a control over Armenia, has flipped to the other side.
But no, they have control over Azerbaijan. That's the other side.
Okay.
Yeah, but Kim Kardashian. Excuse me.
I'm looking at the map.
Right. And Kim Kardashian is one of the top Armenians in the United States in terms of popularity. So they can send her right into Armenia and to stir up, that American perspective.
And so was her father. So
right. And a lot of people are looking at Kanye and saying, oh, he's crazy. He's sitting with Trump. That's a power move.
Mm-hmm.
That's a power move. That's all it is. It's a political move. Kim Kardashian is trying to get her way closer into the White House.
I saw my Padawan. You're learning.
Yeah, because Kanye did visit Trump, and it came seemingly out the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And now that you're saying that,
the
next move is for, I'm guessing, is for Kim to visit Armenia,
or whoever Kim's connected to.
Okay.
Look, Kim goes back and forth to Armenia at least once a year, but the way to get to Kim was to get to Kanye first.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump got to Kanye then in order to get to Kim.
Right. Trump and Kanye have been meeting since Trump won the election. Remember, Kanye ran up there and it was like, well, why is he talking to Steve Harvey? Why is he talking to Kanye? Well, there's reasons behind all of that, and Kanye has a very close relationship with Kim. He probably relayed the information back to Kim. Kim was like, let me know when he says it's a green light.
See, I saw my Padawan. You're learning.
Yeah, I like that.
You're learning. It's all connected. All it takes is what? Patience, right?
Mm. Yeah.
You have, the biggest question is always what? Why? Not what, but why.
White
Right.
people.
I wish black people would stop bashing Kanye as if he's some kind of he's some kind of like a political spokesperson for black people, when this has more to do with his wife more than anything else.
Yeah, he's just a puppet.
Yeah, but the thing is, we don't know that until it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Until the movie's made, because we can't, at least we can't. I don't know about you, Mike, but we can't see behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to. We can't see behind the scenes, so we have to wait till the information comes out and add the pieces up. Like I said, something like Meghan Markle was obvious. That's obvious. Where everybody's looking at the royal wedding and said, "This is a political move."
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, all you have to do is, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, right. Kim has been granted security clearance inside the White House.
Really?
What? Wow. What you hear that at? Well, read that at.
Where does he work?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. He knows this stuff. He has to know this stuff. That's his business to know this stuff.
Cause like, I kid you not. I'm gonna say I be, but I'm gonna say anyway. I'll be up here trying to read articles, and I'm like, man, what's?
Yeah, you can't read everything.
Yeah, you can. I'm like, man, I'm trying to get this information.
No, you can't. That's like you need that's why you need a team, a think tank. You can't do it by yourself.
Yeah. And I'm learning because I'm neck deep into crypto. I'm trying to get the stuff together, and I'm like, I can't do these things.
Well, during the coup in Armenia, the Russians didn't even blink an eye. They walked away. So that means they're going to give up on Armenia because they don't really need Armenia anymore because they have a strong military base inside Syria. Before they needed Armenia as a in between to go to get into the Middle East. And now they don't need it anymore because they have the Iranian air base and they have the Syrian air base.
And who else do they have on their side?
Turkey.
As the world turns,
as the world turns, yeah. Eventually, it's like the you will be assimilated. It's like the Borg. It's just history. Like Quigley says, some things you can't stop. The mechanism is what the mechanism is, and the United States has been trying to prove his theory wrong, and basically his theories about civilization are coming true.
Now, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if Omarosa was actually smart, she would have went to Africa on the peace mission on behalf of Trump instead of sending what's this guy Rex Tillerson over there. Because remember when Trump made the comments about it being a shithole, she could have been the better face and better interface for Africa and could have worked her way up to the top. But she ran her mouth one too many times and they got her ass about it.
Yeah, well, yeah. Their best chance to actually do anything in Africa was Obama, because the Africans loved Obama. I mean, really loved Obama. Yeah. And I think they used all that capital, Obama's capital, on Libya, because France really needed that favor from Obama in Libya, but that kind of ruined his capital in Africa.
What was you about to say, Lionel?
No, I was gonna ask about that book, but
which one?
Tragedy and Hope. If you're gonna do it's a big book.
I did like the first 6 chapters. It's on my BGS Books channel. You can actually go and take the first 6 lessons. I didn't actually complete the whole book study. I did about the first 6 or 7 chapters.
Because I'm listening to you, Gold, Dollars, and Power.
What do you think? What do you think? Where is it? Do you understand it? Could I make clearer? What do you think?
Chapter 1, I read it, and some things stuck, but a lot of things just went over my head. And now that you're breaking it down, because I've just read chapter 1, and I'm able to say, okay, connect the pieces. So yeah,
Well, the thing is, it's complex, and sometimes that's like I read it. I actually put in a little commentary here and there to give you kind of a feel of it, and then maybe do a hangout and actually break down, because there's more stuff coming. Because Gold Dollar and Power is like a primer to get you to kind of understand how the how the infrastructure kind of works. And then when I bring in other stuff from other places, then you already have a primer on it. And then one thing will relate to the other. Like actually, like the special drawing rights, most people don't understand what they are, but that was actually invented by Lyndon Johnson, because he didn't want he didn't want the dollar to be a sole reserve currency.
Because I know I heard two older guys talking, and, you know, when people talk, well, yeah, this, and I was telling them, no, per the Bretton Woods system, it was the gold back thing. Nixon got us off in 71, so America dollar became the global reserve, and now China don't want to be. So I was able to speak it out, and try to tell people about it. But I can tell when I did it, it just went totally ahead.
Yeah, it glazes people's eyes glaze over because they have no backing in it. So and basically, you know, you're just learning about it. But the thing is, you start to learn how the system actually works from the ground up, because books like that will actually teach you how the system was actually formed and what adjustments they made. And once you learn what adjustments they made, you know where the problems actually are in the system and how it works. And basically, the Bretton Woods system is still with us. It's just not in the same. It's not backed by gold, but it's still with us.
Yeah, it's just
a lot of mechanism. Yeah. It's fiat, which is what in the book he says that's the problem with there's a problem with gold, and there's a problem with fiat. But the thing is, Bretton Woods was the compromise that really didn't work very well.
And I'm hearing a lot of people, because you released that video. The de-dollaration, something of the dollar.
The de-dollaration of de-dollaration.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, after I heard the video, I'm thinking like, okay, this is where crypto come in.
So crypto comes in, and that's the reason the Chinese don't want. They really don't want the yuan to be the sole reserve currency, because they don't want to get in the trick bag that the United States got in.
Yeah, because it comes with obligations.
Yeah. And we have to run deficits, and you have to enforce the payment of the deficits and stuff like that, which the Chinese don't want to get into.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why they're doing what they're doing, which is kind of gives you an undergirding of what's going on. Not exactly, but it gives you enough knowledge so when you actually read something about it, you can kind of understand what it's about. Because a lot of people talk about gold and why we got off the gold system, don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. Because I didn't. Until I read it. So no. Yeah.
And when you say, no, there's not enough gold in the world to scale up.
It's not.
So yeah.
Which is why World War II came about, pretty much, because there's not enough of it there to scale up. And they found that out when they tried to hit Germany for reparations, and they found out the gold system was inadequate. Because passing gold back and forth and trying to balance it out with the limited amount of gold that you have is not going to work, which is part of what caused the crash, and them trying to balance it out. So
yeah, it's going to be someone with a lot of gold and a lot of people with not a lot of gold.
Well, not a lot of gold, and then how do you because the countries with the gold are going to resist giving up the gold.
Yeah,
and then there's going to be a whole lot. In other words, there is no perfect mechanism. So that's how come they use gold and they use parts of gold as a reserve, or as accounting towards your reserve status as far as the currency is concerned, and then the rest is just market-based exchanges that determines what the value of currency actually is. And it still doesn't work perfectly, but it's a lot better than some of the other systems. It's a lot better than going into like World War III, to actually come in and actually take somebody's stuff or take somebody's gold, which is what usually would happen. They didn't want that to happen again. But anyway, we'll let you guys go. Anything else?
So, yep, I'm all right. You got anything else, Mike?
No. This has actually been a good discussion. Probably reconvene on Saturday during the geopolitics hour.
Okay, all right. Am I helping you guys or out? Is it coming across?
I'm understanding a lot from you and Mike. Tell you the truth.
Okay, yeah. Well, Mike's deep. Yeah, this is his right in his bailiwick. So because he has to probably keep up with this. Yeah, well, he's security, so geopolitics and security, all that stuff kind of adds up. He's got to know this stuff. This is his business.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning a lot. I can just say that, and
yeah. It's a hobby for me. It's his business.
I'm surprised as an old Navy guy. I'm surprised you don't keep up with this stuff.
Well, since I was on submarines and
you don't know where you are underwater.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Wait, were you a Navy contractor?
Nah, not a sub.
It was fun. I would say that much, but that cooking, golly, I hated that.
Now he's a swabby, good old fashioned swabby.
Yeah. But thank you all for joining. Don't forget Friday's our economics hangout, Money Making Friday.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna let you guys have it until me and Ulysses kind of bury our
hatchet. Yeah,
bury the hatchet. So I don't join in on those. I know he's gonna be in on those. And
we got a Dollar Will and Matty Ghost.
Ulysses is here right now.
Is he? Okay.
We got we got Dollar Will and Matty Ghost on there. Just man, they go at it, boy. It's good. It's good.
Oh, yeah. Dollar was an old trader, so
yeah,
he's an old trader. So yeah, old traders have really strong economic opinions about money and the economics. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So,
but
our Fridays are good.
Okay. All right. I'll leave you guys to it.
All right. So with that said, you all have a good day.
All right.
All right.
Peace.
All right.